Greetings, fellow armchair Imagineers. Tiki here, and it gives me great pleasure to welcome you once again to another exciting, peculiar, and polarizing episode of the So You Want to Be an Imagineer historical retrospective. This time covering Season 5. Ooh. Before I start, I'd just like to quickly apologize for taking so long in between the episodes. It's been about 2 weeks since I did the Season 4 retrospective. But I really appreciate the fact that there's been a lot of activity going on in the forums recently, just outside of the main game. It always gives me great pleasure to see the open brainstorming threads just alive and well, and once again I like to give a shout out to Big Disney Fan for, just doing his best to keep all that going, because he's one of the more active members that we have. So with that, let's just jump right into it. Now, one of the things that you guys know the most about Season 5 is that it's kind of like we've always had this love-hate relationship with it. It's like, I think most of you guys, you really kind of dislike it for a lot of reasons. But I've always defended it. Over the years, I've always defended this season. This season, to me, it's right before Season 6, which really was the big game changer. That's when we started to get into teams and stuff like that. But I feel like there were just a couple key gameplay elements introduced in Season 5 that really went on to just have a major, major impact. And I really like the way that they were implemented. So with that, let's just dive right in and just crack this sucker open, shall we? So coming off of the big success that was Season 4, which, like I said, was the first time where we really had a full cast of players and everyone was really into it, I'll be the first to admit that Season 5 was not the most well planned out. If I remember correctly, we started the season just a couple weeks after Season 4 ended, which, as you guys know, that doesn't happen at all anymore. Now we take, it used to be we took a few months off. Now I'm pretty sure from now on it's just going to be a once-a-year thing in the summer, the game. But for a while, I was really pumping out the seasons, and I think Season 5, you can really kind of attest to the fact that it was just after a season, and it was, I don't know, just overall people just weren't into it as much. So once again, we're back to a 7-person cast like we had in the first 3 seasons. And initially, I kind of thought, there's nothing really wrong with that. I kind of figured Season 4 in the long run would be a really defining spearhead sort of season anyway, so I was like, why don't we try a season where there's a smaller cast, but just really try and implement some things that just change the game. So that was really my approach the whole season going in, and I think overall I did a pretty good job of that. 7th place was Jay Phelps, who was the resident sort of underdog villain sort of character in Season 4. I don't really remember all that much about his role in Season 5. I'm just going to have to assume that it was just, he just came out with the weakest project, because this was still the last season where we were doing every man for themselves, you submit a project every week sort of thing, and there weren't any real teams going on. So Jay Phelps, that was probably it. He just submitted the weakest project, so he kind of starts a long run of being eliminated really early in the seasons he participates in. Season 6, I'll get to that, but I wish I would have actually let him play in Season 6, because I kind of cut him when I really shouldn't have, but I'll get to that. And then Season 7, as I said earlier, he's got just this crazy one-project storyline that I can't wait to just talk about. So we'll get into much more with Jay Phelps later, but in the meantime, he starts his long trend of becoming a first boot, and he gets eliminated in 7th place. Project 2. Now here is where the game really started to take a turn. 6 people left, so I decided to break it up into 2 teams of 3. Very simple project, just create a dark ride, based on an animated film, just a pretty cut and dry black and white project. Kind of to throw them off guard for the projects coming up later, but the interesting thing about this particular project was that I grouped the people up into 3 different categories. On each team you had the story person, the technical effects person, and then the there was one other position, but I can't really remember what it was. I think maybe it was the person who was actually in charge of compiling the project and getting it together and posting it. So a team leader, a creative person, and then a technical person, basically. And now the season's real resident rising star at the time was Mater A123. Or is that his name? Mater A something. Mater. You guys all know Mater. I'll just call him Mater. I don't have to go by his 133, whatever numbers are attached to his name. Mater came out with a really strong project in the first season. Everyone was, just wanting to work with him. He was just a really strong presence and personality. He gets teamed up with King Mickey and World in the first project. These are both players who were in Season 4. Ironically, they kind of bookended Season 4. World got eliminated first, and King Mickey ended up in second place. So they were both on a team with Mater. And Mater took on the responsibility as a story person, and I believe it was World that took on the responsibility of the technical person, with King Mickey being the one who actually would compile and get their projects together. And so the project they decided to do was based on Enchanted, and now just a real rule of thumb that I have for designing dark rides is I really think throughout the board, the best sort of dark rides are the more abstract ones where they don't just follow the plot of the movie. If you look at Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, which is arguably the most popular dark ride out of them all, at least in the, in the Disney fan community, Mr. Toad, that follows just a completely non-linear sort of narrative. You don't even see Toad's, quote-unquote wild ride in the actual Disney movie itself. So it's expanding on the source material, and I think that's what all dark rides should really aim to do. Roger Rabbit's Cartoon Spin is kind of a sequel to the original Who Framed Roger Rabbit in a way, with the storyline going on. At least I think it is. I don't know. Who knows? Peter Pan's Flight, it kind of follows the film, but at the same time, it's less telling a story, and it's more just taking you on an experience. And yeah, and then there's the other ones, if you look right across Fantasyland, you have Pinocchio's Daring Journey, Snow White's Scary Adventures. I personally love Snow White's Scary Adventures, but it gets a lot of flack, and so does Pinocchio. And I think the reason that those two both get a lot of flack is that they do try and just follow the movies a little too much. It's just a little too structured. So my point and what I'm getting at all this is that the Enchanted dark ride that this team came up with, that consisted of Mater and King Mickey, which were easily two of the season's big frontrunners going in, it just followed the plot of the movie way too closely. It was just retelling the movie. I mean, that's really all it was. I didn't like that at all. I didn't appreciate that at all. I just did not care for their project. And when it came down to it, Mater was the story person. Mater was responsible for the fact that, the story was just not something I was looking for. So, in a shocking and cruel, and to this day still very much controversial and talked about twist of fate, I eliminate the season's big front-runner up-and-comer new all-star player in 6th place. Mater goes out in 6th place. And this one event just went on to change and define the entire dynamic of the season. Nothing was the same after this. So after Mater's shocking elimination, King Mickey, who at this point now looks to be the major frontrunner, just up and quits. Just up and quits out of nowhere. He just thinks it's just an entirely unjustified reaction from me to eliminate Mater. And I mean, to an extent, I do kind of agree with him in the long run. I think I can freely admit to myself now that I was kind of grabbing at, a controversial moment, and I just sort of looked at Mater being the story person in that last project to justify it. Really, in all honesty, it probably should have been World going home at that point. World, like I said, he was 7th place. I mean, he was the first person voted off of Season 4, you know, he's just really not that strong of a contestant. I mean, I hate to down on the guy, I really do. I think he's a spunky personality, but, you know, he just doesn't have a work ethic of someone like a Mater does. And so King Mickey was so upset by the fact that World didn't get eliminated that, you know, he just quits. And so we're left with just 4 people. And this is the time where I introduce the biggest twist in the game, possibly one of the biggest twists of all time. So at this point in the game, we have 4 players left. We have World, who everyone pretty much wanted to see eliminated in Project 2 and was still somehow holding on. We had Costa Freak, who, you know, is just the game's resident sort of mascot underdog at this point, and this is the first time he's made the Final 4 since his initial appearance in Season 1. And then we have Roman Arms, who has kind of been gradually building himself up as a player throughout Season 3 and 4. And then we have Man-Eating Wreath, aka Garrett Smith, who obviously you guys know all about Mew or Man-Eating Wreath, how you want to pronounce his name. You know what? I'm not even going to get into him all that much until the Season 6 retrospective, so let's just put a placeholder on him until he gets eliminated. And then, yeah, all 4 of those people just had no idea what was coming next, because at this point, every singular project in So You Want to Be an Imagineer history had been orientated towards Disney. And then suddenly, I unleash a twist. Bam! The rest of the projects this season are all going to be themed to Universal Studios. I believe I kind of framed it in sort of an RPG sort of way where, you know, in an imaginary scenario, like, oh, Universal is so impressed by the work that you've been doing for Disney that they want to recruit you to work on their Hollywood park. You know, I don't really do that kind of stuff, that kind of RPG stuff anymore, but it was fun. So, I believe the first project for the Universal set, I'm going to have to jog my memory a little bit. As you can tell, my memory of the projects is just getting just a little better, you know, just a little tiny bit better. There's only 2 I don't remember all 3 of them. There's only 2 I remember. There's a restaurant project and then the final project. So I'll get to the restaurant project first off. The only one that I truly remember really liking was, I think it was Costa Freak did a Jurassic Park The Ride restaurant, where he took sort of the big gift shop area, and I believe there's a small, you know, cafe sort of restaurant over by the Jurassic Park ride in Universal Hollywood, and he made it all into the actual visitor center from the Jurassic Park movie. And yeah, I really liked that project a lot. If I remember correctly, there were some sort of interactive elements, you know, some other stuff going on, and I mean, let's face it, I'm just a sucker for Jurassic Park, so yeah. And World finally gets eliminated in season... Oh, I know what the other project is. It's one of the most famous projects. It coined a catchphrase. I'm sorry about that. But anyways, World gets eliminated in 4th. And the interesting thing about World that I kind of brought up in Season 4 just a little bit is that World is like the only underdog where he was just pretty much universally, like, no one really wanted to see him go far. He was just, I mean, if you look at a Costa Freak, or you look at a Disney Lover Forever, or a Jay Phelps, I mean, Disney Lover Forever and Jay Phelps were somewhat polarizing personalities, but still, they just had this air of spunkiness to them that made you really want to root for them. World, I don't know, he was just one of those players in the, you know, they're just kind of there sort of category. So really, again, it just all comes back to the fact that a lot of people just felt he should have been eliminated in the final 6 over Mater. So I just think that's a little interesting cliff note, that World is one of the few players that's just a notable footmark in the So You Want to Be an Imagineer history, specifically for being someone that people didn't want to see get far that kind of did. And yeah, I have no idea why I was having such a hard time remembering this project. It's the infamous Lord of the Rings River Adventure project, where the project was to literally take the Jurassic Park River Adventure in Universal Hollywood and convert it into a Lord of the Rings River Adventure. Yeah, this contained one of the most memorable events in the game's history too, because at this point, Man-Eating Wreath had just been tearing through these projects. I mean, you know, Mew or Garrett, again, however you want to say his name, however you want to address him, every season he competes in, he always brings a level of quality, a level of just sheer dedication that you don't see much in contestants. So, I mean, he was just on a fast track to win this season. He was more of a front runner to win Season 5 than Mad About Mickey was to win Season 3, when that season pretty much was geared towards her the whole time. I mean, Mew was just crushing it until he got to the Lord of the Rings project. One of the big things about So You Want to Be an Imagineer now, in the time that it's evolved in the last few seasons, and I've introduced more and more sort of outside-the-box, non-Disney projects, is you've got to adapt. You've got to do your research. If a project comes up where it's a subject material that you have no idea what it is or aren't comfortable with, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter at all, man. This game is not about just designing rides that you want to design. This game is, you know, about thinking outside your comfort zone. It's about coming up with ideas even when they're just things that you wouldn't normally touch. And in that respect, Mew, quite frankly, sort of failed. Yeah. It's interesting. I remember Roman Arms project. It was an interesting project because it was like, it was more of a Hobbit ride than it was a Lord of the Rings ride, but I still kind of liked it. It was original. It kind of felt like I was talking about earlier, of taking, you know, not taking the main storyline of the source material, but instead just taking the core essentials and crafting another experience out of it. I feel like that's what Roman Arms did with his Lord of the Rings project. Costa Freak did the project that I was most wanting to see out of that particular theme. I don't remember too much about it, but I don't know. I just remember it was very solid, very well constructed. One of my favorite Costa Freak projects, actually. I wish I remembered certain particular details about it so I could point stuff out. Mew's project was all over the place. I mean, you could clearly tell when you read his project that he was not comfortable with the source material. And so, bam! The season's big-time frontrunner was eliminated in third place. Another shocking elimination. So, we come to the final two. We have Roman Arms, who's just, like I said, he's just throughout the game just been building up his skills as a player over the past few seasons. And then we have Costa Freak, one of the more famous characters in the game's lore, even at this point. And this is Costa Freak's first time reaching a final two. So really, it was just the most random set of people to make the final two, but I was really happy with it. Now, I believe the last project was a pretty basic just design, a sort of blue sky universal attraction. It could take on any theme. Again, I'm guilty of kind of a shady memory here because I hate to say it, but I don't remember what gave Roman Arms the winning project, what his theme was. I do remember that Costa Freak wanted to make a Jurassic Park ride, except instead of being on boats, it was a Jeep ride, just like in the movie. I was really intrigued to see where he would go with that, but unfortunately, it wouldn't be a season of So You Want to Be an Imagineer without Costa Freak's personal schedule somehow getting in the way. So he posted the opening paragraph of that project, promised the rest, and then never delivered with that. But, you know, I mean, it's just, like I said, it's just personal time getting in the way. I just can't knock him for that. I've been there all the time. So, in the end, Roman Arms, he did kind of win by default. I'll admit that, I hate to say it, but he's not one of the stronger winners. I think he's one of the more interesting winners. He's one of the people who is kind of living proof that any sort of type of player can win the game. What I do very much appreciate about Roman Arms is the fact that, like I've been saying, he did gradually improve his game season for season. In Season 3, he was really more of an underdog. In Season 4, he came in the middle of the pack, but it was a very competitive season that season, so he did really improve himself. And then finally, in Season 5, he comes in and, through some crazy sort of events that really he didn't have a lot to do with, he does make it to the end, but I don't know, he was a talented personality, he was a talented player, and I definitely think his win was very much deserved. But after Season 5, there was just this air of like, okay, that was kind of a train wreck. We had a huge player get eliminated really early, we had a huge player drop out, we had a player who was expected to win, not even make the finals. In the end, I liked the season for all those reasons. I love the season because it's so short. It's such a short little 7-person cast, and yet so much drama and big events went down. And I don't know, I always will give myself a little bit of credit for the way I introduced the Universal Studios projects into the game. I really like the fact that the last 3 projects were all Universal Studios projects. I really like that kind of put all the Final 4 on sort of an even playing field, because all of them were sort of uncomfortable with that. And I think it led to some really interesting results. So I promise you guys that the next retrospective is definitely not going to be 2 weeks away. I want to finish this stuff up before we get into the signups for Season 11, which is going to take place on May 5th. And I've also got another secret project that I want to reveal to you guys before then, so hopefully in just a couple days I'll be getting to Season 6, and that is my personal #1 favorite season of So You Want to Be an Imagineer, so I'll have a lot to talk about with that. At this point, I don't know, this video in itself, just Season 5, is running way long, so I'm pretty sure from now on I'm going to have to cut all these things up into a pre-merge and a post-merge sort of scenario, because at this point the game goes into teams anyways, so yeah, each video will probably be 2 parts from now on, so look forward to part 1 of Season 6 coming really soon, I hope. And in the meantime, thanks a lot for watching, and sorry again for taking so long, and have a great day, everybody.